Commander Zixtal floated in his command chair, his blue skin glowing softly in the bridge lights. Around him, the crew of the Galactic patrol ship Harmony worked quietly. Their long, thin fingers danced over control panels that hummed with gentle energy. Everything was peaceful, just like it had been for thousands of years. The deep space scanner beeped. Zixtal's assistant, a small creature with 6 eyes, looked up from her station. "Commander, we have ships coming from the outer edge of the galaxy," she said in a voice like singing bells. "Many ships. They look damaged." Zixtal nodded. This happened sometimes. When a star exploded or a planet died, survivors would flee across space looking for new homes. The Galactic Council had rules about helping refugees. It was their duty to welcome them. "Send the standard greeting," Zixtal ordered. "Tell them we offer help and safe passage to Verdania Prime. The gardens there are beautiful this season." The message went out across space, translated into thousands of languages. It carried symbols of peace and friendship that every civilized race knew. Zixtal smiled. Soon these poor refugees would be safe on one of the Council's garden worlds, where gentle rain fell and soft winds blew. Far away, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The UES Defiance was old and scarred from a long journey. Burn marks covered her hull. Her engines ran rough, held together by spare parts and hope. Around Jake, his crew worked at stations that sparked and smoked. Jake was a tall man with gray in his hair and lines around his eyes. His uniform was patched and faded. Like his ship, he had seen better days. Behind him, Lieutenant Amy Brooks read reports from their other ships. The human fleet was barely holding together after their long run from Earth. "Captain, we're getting a message from an alien ship," the communications officer called out. "They're offering us help." Jake looked at the peaceful symbols on his screen. After months of running from the disaster that destroyed Earth, it seemed too good to be true. But his fuel was almost gone, and his people needed food and rest. "Send back our standard reply," Jake said. "Tell them we accept their help, but we come armed and ready to defend ourselves." Amy Brooks frowned at the harsh response, but she knew Jake was right. Space was dangerous. Even when people seemed friendly, it was smart to be ready for trouble. The alien commander received the human reply and felt confused. The translation was rough, but it seemed like these refugees were talking about weapons and fighting. That made no sense. Refugees were supposed to be peaceful and grateful for help. "Perhaps their translator is broken," his assistant suggested. "Poor things. They must be very scared after losing their home." Zixtal agreed. Fear could make anyone say strange things. He ordered his ship to move closer to the human fleet. Soon they would guide these lost souls to safety. As the two fleets came together in empty space, neither side knew what was about to happen. The humans floated in their battle-scarred ships, ready for anything. The aliens glided forward in their beautiful vessels, expecting another routine refugee rescue. That's when the pirates struck. The attack came from behind a dark asteroid. 5 sleek warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately began firing. Their energy weapons lit up space with deadly colors. They had been watching the meeting, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Pirates loved refugee fleets. The survivors were usually weak and helpless, loaded down with valuable things from their dead worlds. And if there were aliens from the Galactic Council nearby, even better. Council ships carried the best technology in the galaxy. The pirate leader, a scaled creature named Vorthak, laughed as his weapons charged. This would be easy money. The refugees would surrender quickly, and the Council ship would run away rather than fight. Pirates knew that Council races were soft. They talked about peace and never fought back hard. Commander Zixtal's ship shook as pirate weapons hit its shields. Alarms rang through the bridge. His crew cried out in fear. They had never been in a real battle before. "Retreat," Zixtal ordered. "Send a message for help. We cannot fight them." His ship began to turn away, its weapons firing weak shots that barely scratched the pirate hulls. This was how Council ships always handled pirates. Run away, call for help, and hope the bad guys would leave. But the humans did something different. Jake Morrison watched the pirate ships attack and felt old anger rise in his chest. His people had been running for months. They were tired, hurt, and almost out of supplies. But they were not helpless. "Amy, target the lead pirate ship," Jake said calmly. "All ships battle formation. Show these bastards what Earth's children can do." Lieutenant Brooks' fingers flew over her controls. Around the human fleet, weapons that looked crude and simple compared to alien technology began to move. Missile tubes opened, railguns charged with electricity, and deep in each ship's belly, something the galaxy had never seen before began to wake up. The pirates saw the human ships turning to fight and laughed. These primitive refugees thought they could battle experienced raiders. Their energy shields would stop any attack. Their armor could take hits from military weapons. What could some lost survivors do to them? They found out when the first human missile hit. It wasn't an energy weapon like the pirates expected. It was a simple piece of metal moving at incredible speed. It hit the pirate shield and went right through like the shield wasn't there. The metal slug punched through the pirate ship's armor and exploded inside. Vorthak stopped laughing when half his ship disappeared in a ball of fire. "What was that?" he screamed at his crew. "Energy shields should stop everything." But more missiles were already coming, and behind them, invisible beams of particles moving close to the speed of light. The pirates' beautiful ships, designed to fight other energy-based weapons, had no defense against simple kinetic force. Amy Brooks watched her targeting computer and called out hits. "Direct impact on Ship 2. Ship 3 is losing atmosphere. Ship 4 is turning to run." The battle lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, 4 pirate ships were floating debris. The 5th limped away, its crew too scared to keep fighting. Commander Zixtal stared at his screens in shock. The refugee ships, the ones he thought needed rescue, had just destroyed a pirate fleet that could have beaten most Council warships. And they had done it so fast, so efficiently that it looked easy. Jake Morrison's voice came over the communication channel, speaking in rough but understandable Galactic Common. "This is Captain Morrison of the human fleet," he said. "Thanks for the offer of help. We'd still like to take you up on that safe harbor if it's still available." Zixtal looked at the wreckage floating in space and realized that everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about the universe had just changed. These weren't refugees fleeing disaster. These were survivors of something much worse. And they had learned to fight back. Dr. Lisa Carter sat in the medical examination room and tried not to laugh. Around her, 5 of the galaxy's best scientists stared at their instruments like they were broken. They had been testing her for 3 hours now, and each new result seemed to confuse them more. The lead scientist, a tall alien with purple skin and 4 arms, looked at his scanner again. His name was something Lisa couldn't pronounce, so she called him Dr. Purple in her head. "This cannot be right, Doctor," Purple muttered to his assistant. "The readings show that her bone density is 3 times normal. Her muscle fibers are designed for extreme stress. And look at these scars on her hands." Lisa looked down at her hands. They were covered in small white lines from years of work and accidents. Every human had scars like that. She had never thought they were unusual. "Those are from my childhood," she explained. "I fell out of trees, cut myself on rocks, burned my fingers on hot things. Normal kid stuff." The scientists looked at each other with wide eyes. One of them, a creature that looked like a walking flower, whispered something about deliberate injury tolerance testing. Lisa sighed. It was going to be a long day. Meanwhile, in another part of the space station, Commander Pete Davis was telling stories to a group of alien diplomats. They had asked him about human history, thinking it would help them understand his species better. Now they looked like they wanted to run away. "So during World War II, Pete continued, soldiers fought in temperatures that reached 50 degrees, below zero. They marched through snow for weeks. Many of them froze to death, but they kept fighting anyway. An alien that looked like a crystal tree shook with horror. Your people fought wars in conditions that would kill most species instantly?" "Oh, that's nothing," Pete said cheerfully. "We also fought in deserts where the temperature hit 60 degrees above zero, and in jungles where the air was so thick with disease that breathing could kill you. Humans are pretty adaptable." The alien diplomats took notes with shaking hands. One of them asked, "How many of these wars did your species fight?" Pete thought for a moment. Well, in just the last century, we had 2 world wars, dozens of smaller wars, and hundreds of conflicts. Before that, he shrugged. We've been fighting each other for our entire recorded history. A small alien with big eyes fainted. Back. In the medical bay, Dr. Lisa Carter was getting frustrated with the tests. The scientists wanted to know everything about human biology. They had never seen anything like it before. Your planet, Dr. Purple said slowly. Please describe it for us. Lisa smiled, thinking of home. Earth is beautiful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green forests. The gravity is normal for us, of course. We have weather patterns that change with the seasons. Sometimes we get storms. Define storms, the flower creature asked. Well, thunderstorms have lightning and heavy rain. Tornadoes are spinning columns of air that can destroy buildings. Hurricanes are massive storm systems that can flood entire cities. Blizzards dump meters of snow and create winds that can freeze you in minutes. The alien stared at her in silence. And you consider these normal? Dr. Purple whispered. Sure, weather happens. You just deal with it. One scientist was frantically calculating on his computer. The atmospheric pressure variations you describe would be lethal to most species. The electromagnetic activity from lightning would disrupt our nervous systems. The temperature changes would cause immediate organ failure. Lisa frowned. What kind of planets do you guys come from? Dr. Purple showed her a picture on his screen. It showed a world of gentle rolling hills, calm blue lakes, and soft clouds. The weather report showed temperatures that varied by only a few degrees. No storms, no lightning, no dangerous weather at all. This is Harmony Prime, where I was born, he said proudly. Perfect climate, stable weather, ideal gravity. Most civilized worlds are similar. Lisa looked at the boring paradise on the screen and felt sorry for them. Don't you miss the excitement? The challenge? Challenge? The flower creature sounded confused. Why would anyone want their environment to be challenging? In another part of the station, engineer Sam Taylor was fixing an alien computer that had been broken for 6 months. The alien technicians watched in amazement as he took apart their most advanced technology with simple tools. This circuit board is burned out, Sam said, holding up a piece of alien technology. And this power coupling is installed backwards. No wonder it doesn't work. The chief alien engineer, a creature with 6 legs and compound eyes, buzzed nervously. But the safety protocols clearly state that component must never be removed while the system is active. The energy feedback could cause explosion. Sam looked at the readings on his scanner. Nah, it's fine. The power levels are way too low to be dangerous. He reached into the active system and yanked out the broken part. All the alien engineers dove for cover. Sam replaced the broken component and closed the panel. The computer hummed to life, working perfectly for the first time in months. How did you know it was safe? The chief engineer asked from behind his blast shield. Experience, Sam said with a shrug. On Earth, we learn to work with dangerous things all the time. Electricity, radiation, toxic chemicals, explosive materials. You just have to understand how they work and respect them without being afraid of them. The alien engineers looked at him like he had said he enjoyed wrestling with death itself. Dr. Lisa Carter's examination was finally coming to an end. The scientists had tested her blood, her reflexes, her strength, and her endurance. Every result had shocked them. Your hemoglobin can carry oxygen at efficiency levels we thought were impossible, Dr. Purple said, reading from his notes. Your bones are dense enough to survive impacts that would shatter our skeletons. Your muscles contain fibers that can function in extreme conditions. You forgot the best part, Lisa said with a grin. We're persistence hunters. The aliens looked confused again. What does that mean? Lisa stood up and began walking around the room at a steady pace. It means we don't give up. Ever. If we're chasing prey, we can follow it for days. We don't need to be fast or strong. We just keep going long after other predators would quit. She kept walking, her pace never changing. We can run for hours, without stopping. We can go days without sleep. We can survive injuries that would kill other species and keep functioning. The flower creature was taking frantic notes. This persistence hunting? You used it to catch animals? Among other things, Lisa said, still walking. We used it in war, in exploration, in survival situations. When humans decide to do something, we don't stop until it's done. Dr. Purple looked at his fellow scientists. In their eyes, he saw the same realization that was growing in his own mind. These creatures, these humans, weren't just survivors of some disaster. They were the products of a world so hostile that it had created the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever seen. And now they were here, in civilized space, offering their friendship. The question was, what would happen when the rest of the galaxy learned what Deathworlders could do? Commander Pete Davis finished his history lesson and noticed that half the alien diplomats had left the room. The ones who remained looked sick. Is everything okay? He asked with concern. The crystal, tree alien spoke in a shaky voice. Commander Davis, in your description of human conflicts, you mentioned that your people sometimes fought for years without stopping. That they continued fighting even when injured, even when outnumbered, even when defeat seemed certain. That's right, Pete said proudly. Humans don't know how to quit. And this is normal behavior for your species? Pete nodded. It's how we survived. Earth taught us that if you give up, you die. So we learned never to give up. The alien diplomats looked at each other and began to understand what had really arrived at the edge of their peaceful galaxy. Not refugees seeking help, but apex predators from the most dangerous world they had ever heard of. And these Deathworlders were just getting started. The Galactic Council met in their great chamber on Central Prime, a beautiful world where crystal spires reached toward perfect blue skies. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in comfortable chairs, discussing what to do about the humans. Council. Leader Veltar, an ancient being who looked like living silver, spoke to the assembly. The humans have agreed to our integration program. We will give them peaceful worlds to settle far from our major trade routes. This will give them time to adapt to civilized behavior. Many council members nodded in agreement. It seemed like a perfect solution. The humans would learn proper galactic manners and everyone would be safe. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. 6 months later, Mayor Kelly Johnson stood on the observation deck of New Haven Colony and watched her people transform their new world. The planet the council had given them was supposed to be a paradise. Gentle winds, soft rain, perfect temperature all year round. The humans thought it was boring. How's the weather modification project coming along? Kelly asked her chief engineer. Almost done, the engineer replied with excitement. We should have our first thunderstorm next week. The earthquake simulator comes online next month and the volcano project should be ready by winter. Kelly smiled. Her people needed challenges to feel alive. A world without danger was like a prison to them, so they were making their own. The alien observers, sent by the council to monitor human progress, watched in horror from their safe bunker. They had built it after the humans started what they called extreme sports. Today the humans are having something called a mountain climbing competition, reported observer Clicks to his superiors. They are scaling cliff faces without safety equipment in a thunderstorm for fun. On his screen, the council leaders watched humans laugh and cheer as they climbed through lightning and rain. When one of them fell, the others rescued him and he immediately tried to climb again. Are they trying to kill themselves? Asked council leader Veltar. I believe they call it living, Clicks replied weakly. Meanwhile, Captain Ryan Murphy was having his own problems with galactic peacekeeping procedures. His human unit had been assigned to help resolve conflicts peacefully. The aliens thought this would teach humans about proper civilized behavior. They were wrong. The crisis started on a mining station in the Kepler sector. A group of rebels had taken control and were holding workers hostage. Standard galactic procedure called for 6 months of careful negotiation, followed by economic pressure, and then maybe some mild military action. Ryan looked at the situation and saw something different. People were in danger. Every day they waited, those people suffered. That was unacceptable to human thinking. What's our time frame for resolving this? He asked the alien coordinator. If we work quickly, we should have this settled within the year, the coordinator replied proudly. Minimum casualties, maximum diplomacy. Ryan stared at him. A year? People are being hurt right now. Yes, but we must follow proper procedures. Violence should always be the last resort. Ryan nodded and smiled. Don't worry, I'll handle this properly. 4 hours later, the crisis was over. Ryan's team had stormed the station, captured the rebels, and freed all the hostages. No one was killed, though several rebels were in the medical bay with what humans called non-lethal injuries. The alien peacekeeping force arrived just in time to see Ryan's people helping the rescued workers. How did you resolve this so quickly? The alien coordinator asked in shock. We talked to them, Ryan said simply. Granted, we talked while pointing guns at their heads and after we blew up their escape route, but we definitely talked. The coordinator looked around at the unconscious rebels and the grateful workers. This is not how we do things. No. Ryan agreed. This is how we do things, and it works. Dr. Beth Adams was having similar problems in her cultural exchange program. She had been assigned to help alien psychologists understand human behavior. Each session left the aliens more confused and frightened. Please explain human entertainment to us, requested Dr. Zeif, a being that looked like a walking brain with tentacles. Beth thought about where to start. Well, we enjoy many things. Sports, where we compete against each other. Movies, where we watch stories. Music, where we create sounds that make us feel emotions. Dr. Zeif nodded. This sounded normal. Can you show us examples? Beth pulled up a video from Earth that showed a human boxing match. Two men punched each other repeatedly while crowds cheered. The alien psychologist watched in silence as the fighters hit each other, bled, got knocked down, and got back up to continue fighting. This is entertainment? Dr. Zeif whispered. Oh, this is mild, Beth said cheerfully. Wait until you see ice hockey. That's where humans strap blades to their feet and chase a rubber disc across frozen water while hitting each other with sticks. She showed them more videos. Humans jumping out of aircraft with fabric parachutes. Humans racing vehicles at deadly speeds. Humans deliberately frightening themselves with horror movies. Why do you seek out fear and pain? Asked another psychologist. Beth had to think about that. Because it makes us feel alive. Comfort is nice, but challenge is what makes life worth living. We grow stronger by pushing our limits. The psychologists looked at each other with their equivalent of worried expressions. One of them spoke quietly. On our worlds, the purpose of life is to avoid pain and seek comfort. We build our societies to eliminate all sources of danger and stress. That sounds horrible, Beth said honestly. How do you grow? How do you improve? How do you know what you're capable of if you never test yourself? The aliens had no answer for that. The final shock came when Lieutenant Chris Parker volunteered for a rescue mission that had stumped the galaxy's best emergency teams. A research station on Gamma 7 had been hit by a solar flare. The radiation levels were so high that no known species could survive there long enough to reach the survivors. The exposure would kill our people in minutes, the alien rescue coordinator explained. Even with our best protective suits, it's impossible. Chris looked at the radiation readings and shrugged. These levels aren't that bad. I've worked in worse conditions back on Earth. Impossible, the coordinator insisted. No living being can survive that level of radiation. Chris smiled. You haven't met humans yet. He suited up in standard human protective gear and took a shuttle to the dying station. The aliens watched from a safe distance as he landed on the station and began rescuing survivors. For 6 hours, Chris moved through radiation that should have killed him. He found 12 alien researchers and carried them one by one to his shuttle. When he finally returned to the rescue ship, the alien medical team rushed to check him for radiation poisoning. They found nothing. How is this possible? The lead, doctor asked while staring at his instruments. You should be dying from radiation exposure. Chris pulled off his helmet and accepted a cup of coffee from a fellow human. Earth's sun puts out a lot of radiation. Our atmosphere blocks most of it, but we evolved to handle what gets through. Plus, we've been dealing with nuclear radiation for over a century. You build up tolerance." The alien rescuers looked at him like he was a creature from their worst nightmares. And in a way, he was. Back on Central Prime, Council Leader Veltar read the reports from human integration sites and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. "They're not adapting to our way of life," he said to his advisors. "They're changing everything they touch. Perhaps we should relocate them to more isolated sectors," suggested one advisor. "That might not be enough," Veltar replied, looking at a report about humans who had requested permission to explore the galactic core, where radiation and gravitational forces made travel impossible. "Sir?" the advisor asked. Veltar sat down the reports and looked out at his peaceful world. For thousands of years, the galaxy had been a place of comfort and safety. Every danger had been eliminated, every risk removed. Now creatures had arrived who didn't just survive danger, they actively sought it out. They didn't just endure pain, they used it to grow stronger. They didn't just face challenges, they created new ones when life became too easy. "We may have made a mistake," Veltar said quietly. "We thought we were helping refugees. Instead, we may have just introduced apex predators into a galaxy full of prey." Outside his window, the peaceful world continued its gentle existence, unaware that everything was about to change. The Deathworlders were here to stay. The deep space monitoring station at the galaxy's edge had been silent for 3 days. Commander Veltar stared at the empty communication channel and felt his silver skin grow cold. The station had never missed a scheduled report in over 2,000 years. "Send another probe," he ordered his communications officer. "Find out what happened to Station 7. The probe launched into the darkness beyond the galactic rim and began its journey. It would take 6 hours to reach the monitoring station. Veltar settled in to wait, hoping for a simple equipment failure or power outage. He got something much worse. When the probe's signal came back, it carried images that made the entire Galactic Council freeze in terror. Station 7 was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged. Completely absent. Where the massive structure had orbited for millennia, there was nothing but empty space and a faint cloud of metallic dust. "How does an entire space station just disappear?" whispered Council Member Zixtal. Before anyone could answer, the long-range sensors began screaming warnings. Something was coming from the deep void between galaxies. Something huge. Admiral Kate Nelson received the emergency call while reviewing human colony reports. The message was simple and terrifying. "Unknown fleet approaching galactic perimeter. All military forces report for immediate duty." Kate had been a Navy pilot on Earth, then a ship captain, and finally an admiral in the human fleet. She had fought pirates, survived disasters, and led her people through the darkest days after Earth's destruction. But as she looked at the sensor readings, she felt a chill she hadn't experienced since childhood. "How many ships?" she asked the alien intelligence officer. We cannot count them," the officer replied with shaking tentacles. "The mass readings suggest thousands, maybe millions of vessels. They're moving in a formation we've never seen before." Kate studied the data and frowned. The fleet wasn't using any known type of faster-than-light travel. Instead, they seemed to be moving through normal space at speeds that should have been impossible for biological beings. "Get me Captain Troy Williams on the UES Retribution," she ordered, "and contact all human ship commanders. If we're going to face the unknown, I want our best people ready." The first contact with the approaching fleet came when a single scout ship broke away from the main group and entered the galaxy's outer rim. The Galactic Defense Force sent their most advanced diplomatic vessel to make peaceful contact. It was a mistake. Captain Troy Williams watched from his bridge as the alien ship approached the scout vessel. The newcomer looked unlike anything in galactic records, a living thing that moved through space like it was swimming through water. Its hull pulsed with organic rhythms and strange appendages writhed along its surface. "Are they trying to communicate?" asked his communications officer. "I don't think so," Troy replied, watching as the alien scout ship suddenly accelerated toward the diplomatic vessel. "All ships, battle stations, this doesn't look peaceful." The scout ship hit the diplomatic vessel and began to change. Its hull opened like a mouth, revealing rows of organic weapons that no one had ever seen before. Energy beams that weren't energy, projectiles that weren't solid, and something else. Something that seemed to eat space itself. The diplomatic ship tried to retreat, but it was too late. The alien weapons tore through its shields like they weren't there. The hull dissolved under attacks that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics. Within minutes, the pride of the galactic fleet was nothing but floating debris. And then the scout ship began to grow. "It's absorbing the wreckage," Troy's science officer reported in a voice filled with horror. "The alien ship is literally eating our vessel and using the materials to build itself larger." Troy had seen many strange things in his years of military service, but this was beyond anything in his experience. "Get me a communication channel to Admiral Nelson. She needs to know what we're facing." The report that reached the Galactic Council was unlike anything in their peaceful history. The approaching fleet wasn't just hostile. They were something that didn't follow the normal rules of space combat. Their ships were alive, could repair themselves, and grew stronger by consuming their enemies. Council leader Veltar called an emergency meeting of all military leaders. For the first time in galactic history, they were facing an existential threat. "What do we know about these invaders?" he asked the assembled commanders. The head of Galactic Intelligence, a creature that looked like a crystalline spider, projected data into the chamber. "We call them the Void Swarm. They appear to have evolved in the empty space between galaxies. Their technology is entirely biological. They don't use tools or build machines, they grow them." The data showed images captured by long-range probes. The Void Swarm ships moved in patterns that reminded everyone of hunting packs or insect swarms. They worked together with perfect coordination like parts of a single organism. "How do we fight them?" asked a military commander from the Rigel sector. "We don't know," the intelligence chief admitted. "They seem immune to energy weapons. Their hulls adapt to whatever we throw at them. And they can operate in conditions that would kill any of our crew members." Admiral Kate Nelson stood up from her seat. "With respect, you've been fighting wars against yourselves for so long that you've forgotten what real warfare looks like." The alien commanders turned to stare at her. Many of them had read the reports about human military capabilities, but they still thought of Kate's people as newcomers who didn't understand proper galactic warfare. "These Void Swarm creatures sound like they evolved to fight in the most hostile environment possible," Kate continued. "Deep space between galaxies. No resources, no shelter, no mercy. They're apex predators who have spent millions of years learning to survive where nothing else can live." She looked around the chamber at faces that were growing more worried by the moment. "The good news is humans know how to fight apex predators. We've been doing it our entire evolutionary history." Sergeant Alex Brown was on patrol near the galactic rim when the main Void Swarm fleet arrived. His ship was a small reconnaissance vessel, barely armed and not designed for combat. But it was crewed by humans, which made all the difference. "Sergeant, we're picking up massive energy signatures," reported his sensor operator. "Whatever's coming, it's bigger than anything in our database." Alex looked at his screens and saw something that would haunt his dreams forever. The Void Swarm fleet emerged from the darkness like a living nightmare. Thousands of biological ships moved together in perfect harmony. Some were small and fast, like predatory fish. Others were massive, the size of space stations, pulsing with organic weapons. "Get me a secure channel to Admiral Nelson," Alex ordered, "and start recording everything. If we don't make it back, someone needs to know what's coming." As his ship retreated toward friendly space, Alex watched the Void Swarm spread out into attack formation. They moved with the efficiency of a hunting pack that had perfected its techniques over millions of years. But there was something else in their movement, something that made Alex's combat-trained mind pay attention. These creatures were used to hunting prey that ran away. Their tactics were designed for chasing down fleeing victims, not for fighting enemies that fought back. "Interesting," he muttered to himself as he prepared his report for the Admiral. Dr. Nina Ross worked frantically in her laboratory as pieces of destroyed Void Swarm scouts were brought to her. As the fleet's chief biologist, She was tasked with understanding what humanity was about to face. What she found was both terrifying and fascinating. "They're not just evolved for space," she reported to Admiral Nelson over a secure video link. "They're evolved for the absolute worst conditions space can offer. Look at this cellular structure." She showed Kate microscopic images of alien tissue that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "These cells can survive in perfect vacuum, extreme radiation, gravitational forces that would crush normal matter and temperatures near absolute zero." Kate studied the images with growing concern. "So they're tougher than anything we've ever fought." "In some ways, yes," Nina agreed. "But there's something else. Their entire biology is built around quick ambush attacks and overwhelming swarm tactics. They expect their prey to either die quickly or run away. What happens if their prey doesn't do either?" Nina smiled grimly. "That's what we're about to find out." The first major battle between the Galactic Fleet and the Void Swarm took place near the Kepler Nebula. 300 of the galaxy's best warships met the alien scouts in what should have been a decisive victory for the defenders. It was a massacre. Captain Troy Williams watched from the UES Retribution as ship after ship fell to Void Swarm attacks. The alien weapons seemed to ignore every defense the Galactic Fleet possessed. Energy shields meant nothing. Armor was dissolved by biological acids, and every ship that was destroyed was immediately consumed by the aliens, making them stronger. "All human vessels fall back to secondary positions." Kate Nelson's voice came over the communication system. "Do not engage until we understand their tactics better." Troy wanted to argue, but he was a good soldier. He ordered his ship to retreat along with the other human vessels. As they pulled back, he watched the remaining galactic ships try to fight off creatures that were perfectly adapted for this kind of warfare. It was like watching House. The main Void Swarm fleet filled the space near Proxima Station like a living nightmare. Millions of biological ships moved in perfect harmony, their hulls pulsing with organic weapons that had never been defeated. Below them, the combined fleets of 50 civilizations waited in desperate formation. Admiral Kate Nelson stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the approaching horde. Every simulation, every battle plan, every strategy the galactic military had developed ended the same way: total defeat within hours. "Admiral, the Galactic Council is requesting our retreat," reported her communications officer. "They want all human ships to fall back to the secondary defense line." Kate looked at the tactical display. The secondary line was a joke. It would last maybe 10 minutes against these creatures. The tertiary line wouldn't do much better. At this rate, the Void Swarm would reach the galaxy's core worlds within a month. "Negative," she replied. "Send a message to all human vessels. Prepare for Operation Deep Strike." Around her, the bridge crew began the preparations they had trained for but never expected to use. It was a plan so crazy that no civilized species would attempt it. Only Deathworlders could be insane enough to try boarding enemy ships that were designed to operate in the void between galaxies. General Matt Cooper received the attack orders aboard his transport ship and grinned like a predator. His Marines had been waiting for this moment since the first Void Swarm scout had appeared. They were tired of watching from the sidelines while alien fleets got massacred. "Listen up, Marines," he announced over the ship's communication system. "We're going to do something that nobody in this galaxy has ever tried. We're going to board alien vessels and take them apart from the inside." The cheers that echoed through the ship would have terrified most galactic species, but these were humans, and the prospect of close combat against impossible odds just made them more eager to fight. Commander Rachel Davis checked her boarding pod one final time. The small craft was barely larger than a coffin, designed to carry a single Marine through space at high speed. Most of the pod was armor and life support. The rest was weapons and explosives. "Remember," she said to her assault team over the radio, "these things evolved to fight in deep space. They're used to prey that runs away or dies quickly. We're going to do neither." Her team acknowledged with voices that were calm and ready. They had trained for this mission by practicing combat in vacuum, in radiation fields, in gravitational anomalies that would crush normal beings. If anyone could fight the Void Swarm in their home environment, it was humans. The battle began when the first wave of Void Swarm attackers reached the Galactic Fleet. Captain Ben Lewis watched from his command ship as alien weapons tore through the defenders' shields and armor. But this time, the Galactic forces had a different strategy. Instead of trying to stop the Void Swarm advance, they were going to let them get close. Very close. All boarding pods launch when ready. Kate Nelson's voice came over the communication channel. Show these things what humans do to bullies. Thousands of small pods launched from human ships and streaked toward the approaching Void Swarm vessels. The aliens barely noticed them. After all, what could tiny objects do against their mighty bioships? They were about to find out. Commander Rachel Davis felt her pod slam into the hull of a Void Swarm cruiser. The impact would have killed most galactic species, but her suit absorbed the shock and her body handled the rest. Around the impact point, her pod's cutting tools began burning through the alien hull. Breaching in 10 seconds, she reported to her team. Remember, these things have never faced persistence predators before. The hull gave way and Rachel dropped into the interior of an alien vessel, unlike anything in galactic records. The corridors were organic, pulsing with biological rhythms. The atmosphere was a mixture of gases that would have been toxic to most species. The temperature was near absolute zero. Rachel smiled inside her helmet. It felt like home. The first Void Swarm creature she encountered was the size of a small building, with tentacles that ended in biological weapons. It had probably never seen anything like a human before. It had definitely never fought one. The creature lunged at her with movements that were perfectly adapted for zero-gravity combat. Its weapons fired projectiles that could penetrate any known armor. Its tentacles moved with speed that could catch the fastest galactic fighter craft. None of that helped it against a human who had trained for close combat in impossible conditions. Rachel dodged the creature's attack and closed to melee range. Her weapons were simple by galactic standards: explosives, cutting tools, and projectile weapons. But they had been designed by beings who understood that sometimes the best way to solve a problem was to hit it very hard. The fight lasted 30 seconds. When it was over, the Void Swarm creature was dead and Rachel was already moving deeper into the ship. All across the battlefield, human boarding parties were writing a new chapter in military history. They fought in conditions that would have killed any other species, against creatures that had evolved to be perfect void predators. And they were winning. Sergeant Alex Brown moved through the corridors of a Void Swarm bio ship like a ghost. His team had been fighting for 2 hours now, and they had learned something important about their enemies. The Void Swarm was used to fighting other apex predators, creatures that were strong, fast, and dangerous. What they had never encountered was persistence predators who simply refused to quit. These things expect us to either die quickly or give up, Alex reported to his squad. They're not used to prey that keeps coming back stronger. He was right. The Void Swarm creatures fought with tactics designed for quick victories. They would unleash devastating attacks, expecting their enemies to either be destroyed or retreat. When humans instead absorbed the damage and kept fighting, the aliens didn't know how to respond. Colonel Lisa Brown led the deepest penetration into Void Swarm territory. Her mission was to reach the Queen ship, the massive biological vessel that coordinated the entire fleet. It was a suicide mission by any reasonable standard. Lisa had never been reasonable. Breach successful, she reported, as her team cut through the Queen ship's outer hull. Beginning interior assault. The inside of the Queen ship was like stepping into the body of some cosmic monster. Organic corridors stretched in all directions, pulsing with alien life. The air was thick with biological chemicals that would have dissolved most beings. Lisa's team moved through the nightmare landscape like they were taking a walk in the park. Their suits protected them from the hostile environment, and their training had prepared them for combat in any condition. The Queen herself was a creature the size of a city block, connected to her ship by thousands of organic cables. She had probably lived for millions of years, coordinating Void Swarm attacks across the galaxy. Her mind was linked to every ship in the fleet. She had never been boarded by persistent predators who didn't know when to quit. The final battle lasted 18 hours. Lisa's team fought through waves of defending creatures, each one perfectly adapted for void combat. They pushed deeper into the ship as their supplies ran low and their equipment failed, but they kept going. When normal tactics failed, they improvised. When their weapons broke, they made new ones from alien materials. When they were wounded, they patched themselves up and continued fighting. The Void Swarm had never encountered anything like human stubbornness. The Queen died when Lisa Brown placed her last explosive charge directly against the creature's central nervous system. The explosion that followed sent shockwaves through the entire Void Swarm fleet. Without their coordinator, the aliens lost their perfect unity. Ship after ship began to falter as the hive mind that had controlled them for eons suddenly went silent. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral after the battle's end, stood before the assembled Galactic Council and delivered humanity's final message about the war. The Void Swarm has retreated beyond the galactic rim, he reported. Our scouts indicate they're moving back toward intergalactic space. Council leader Veltar could barely believe what he was hearing. How is this possible? They were the perfect predators. Jake smiled grimly. Perfect for fighting other apex predators, maybe. But they made one mistake. They assumed that because we looked small and weak compared to them, we would act like prey. He looked around the chamber at faces that were filled with amazement and new respect. Humans aren't prey. We're persistence predators. We don't give up, we don't run away, and we don't know when to quit. When something tries to hunt us, we hunt it right back. The council members sat in silence, finally understanding what had saved their civilization. The Deathworlders they had thought needed protection had instead become their protectors. What happens now? Asked Veltar. Jake looked out through the chamber's great windows at the peaceful galaxy beyond. Somewhere out there, human colonies were thriving on worlds that other species found hostile. Human ships were exploring regions that had been considered too dangerous for civilized beings, and human marines were training for the next impossible mission. Now, Jake said with the confidence of a species that had evolved on the deadliest world in the galaxy, now we get ready for whatever comes next. Because something always comes next, and when it does, we'll be ready. The galaxy had,